This is the Reviewing Network Live, a weekly stream of consciousness recording session where I sit back with you folks out there, talk about some of the big news stories from the past week, and some other things I found that might be of amusement to you out there. I think you might get a kick out of it. Now, these are more like audio podcasts and are much longer than my usual videos and are also, for the most part, unedited and will contain some foul language. So, if you're easily offended by that, I advise you to maybe step back a bit, maybe go somewhere else. But hey, if you're up to the challenge, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Thanks. Hey there, folks. Before we get this episode started, I just want to let you know that, let's just say that this episode did not go as I planned. For one thing, I kind of knew what eventually happened and the game ended up happening, but that's beside the point. I was all set to upload all of my reactions to the game, and I've got no space on my phone to put all up, so I mean, this is almost 2 hours worth of game footage that I had to trim down, and I wanted to get critical parts of the game into this video, but yeah, no matter what I do, it's just not gonna update everything because there's just no space for it. So, unfortunately, that means the game reaction that I had planned for this particular episode is not going to happen for this one, unfortunately. But I still did the weekend box office. It was still a rather large portion of an episode here in general. So, this is well after I recorded this segment in general. So, this is why the game footage is not here in this particular segment, because of the fact that there's no footage. There's no room for the footage that I recorded on here to be uploaded onto YouTube, because as soon as I tried to upload it, it told me I needed to get rid of some space, and I have space here for other projects I'm working on. So yeah, this did not go as I planned it. That was kind of be expected, considering the stuff I have in here for other things that I'm working on, other projects in general. But so the bottom line here is that there is no game reaction here, unfortunately, and I feel very saddened to say that and disappointed to say that, because I spend a good chunk of time recording segments during the game, and unfortunately I can't show it because there's just no space on my phone to do it. But I did, like I said, I did record the box office, so this is pretty much going to be a very shortened, truncated episode of the show, mostly focusing on the weekend box office, because there is a lot to talk about, especially with the number one movie. But yeah, this did not go as I planned it. But then again, the whole night didn't go as I think anybody in Pittsburgh really expected it to. There was a big rain delay. The Steelers just failed miserably in trying to save the game, and the Cowboys just completely, as depleted as they were, the Steelers still found a way to lose against them. And maybe it's probably for the best, because I was about to snap by the end of this. So yeah, that's why like I said, there's no game footage in this particular episode, solely because I just don't have the space to put it in there. And I'd have to, in order to get rid of it, I have projects in here that I would have to get rid of. But I need to save those projects for other videos I have coming up. So that's why this is just going to be the weekend box office. And again, I'm sorry about that, but I promise you next week we'll have a regular show. So here's the footage I have. Thank you for listening, and I'm sorry. I'll see you next week. And for the 59th time ever, we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another special episode of the Reviewing Network Live. Why is it special? Well, you hear that? That's right. That's right, it's another one of those Sundays.
Here we go. Here we go. Steelers, here we go. Pittsburgh's gone to Super Bowl. Here we go.
We hope. Yes, it is Steelers Sunday, and tonight, of course, the Steelers are playing the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football. And that means it's time for another special live rewatch, like I did with the season opener against the Falcons. That's what we're going to be. That's going to be the main focus of tonight's show in particular, is watching the Cowboys and Steelers game, me reacting to it, hoping for a win, but I'm preparing for the worst possible outcome, especially considering that Baltimore won today in an overtime thriller against Cincinnati. So yeah, this has major implications for the Steelers going forward, because if the Steelers lose this one, and then the Ravens move up to first place in the AFC North. But if the Steelers win, they have sole possession of the AFC North. So there's a lot at stake here tonight, in arguably the greatest interconference matchup is in the NFL. Pretty much, the Cowboys, America's team, the Steel Curtain, the Steelers, of course. Last week the Steelers laid a goose egg against the Colts. And the Cowboys got a win against the Giants, but not really that impressive a win from a team when you're playing a team that only knows how to kick field goals, apparently, because that's pretty much what happened with that game against the Giants. I mean, the Cowboys won because the Giants couldn't stop kicking field goals. But I digress. But before we get to the game itself, because we're still about 3 hours away from kickoff here at the time of recording this, we do have the weekend box office. Now, I didn't cover it last week because it was all about the commentary for Bambi, which you can go check that out in the corner. But it's not an intriguing box office, except for the number one movie, for maybe not the reasons they were expecting it to be. But a lot of these are retreads from before. Some of them I've talked about already. So let's go ahead and just get to it. Number 5 this week is Speak No Evil, which brought in $2.8 million. $32.5 million after 4 weeks. Literally there because there's literally nothing else to really combat it out of the way. So number 4 this week, a movie that I did get to see this week finally, Transformers 1, which has not done the business I think Paramount was hoping for. It brought in $5.4 million this weekend for a 3-week gross of $47.2 million, bringing its worldwide gross up to only $97 million, which is not bad which wouldn't be bad if the movie didn't cost between $75 and $150 million. And I say this is a bad thing for Paramount in terms of the money they spent, but also because the movie is really good. Like, I was really impressed at how much I enjoyed that movie, especially with D16, Brian Tyree Henry's character in that movie, having that great character arc. Just a really good movie, and unfortunately I don't think anybody's really going to go see it now, but when it comes out on Blu-ray, I highly recommend checking it out, because it is a really damn good movie. Maybe easily the best Transformers movie I've ever seen. And so moving on to number 3, another movie I've pretty much covered already, Beetlejuice. Still hanging in there, $10.3 million this weekend, dropping only 36% from last week, $265.5 million. I believe this is actually now Tim Burton's highest grossing film of all time. Crossed $400 million worldwide. I think I read somewhere that it was Tim Burton's highest grossing film of all time. I want to double check that just to be sure. Yeah, I was way off. I thought I read somewhere that this was actually Tim Burton's highest grossing film worldwide, but no, Alice in Wonderland still tops that at $1 billion. So, yeah, forget anything I just said at that point. So anyway, but still, Beetlejuice is still doing very, very well. $265 million after 5 weeks. Still has 3 good weeks ahead of it because it's Halloween, of course. Spooky season is finally here, so yeah, this thing's going to continue to hold on in there in the top 5 for a little bit here. So will the number 2 movie, another movie I got to see this weekend finally, and I'm really happy to say that it's one of the best movies of the year, The Wild Robot. Dropping down from number 1 last week, $18.7 million, $63.9 million. If you count the worldwide grosses, I believe it made back its budget back of $100 million. I think it was $100 million, actually less than that. $78 million was the budget of it, but it has cost $100 million worldwide. Critical acclaim. I mean, just a phenomenal movie. Maybe DreamWorks' best film overall. I didn't get to say that in my review, but I think this might honestly be the best DreamWorks movie I've seen from them probably ever. I mean, I have to go back because they made so many good movies, but this is right up there with some of their best movies of all time, if not the best one they've ever made. I mean, this is a great, great movie that I can't recommend enough. But those are some of the retreads from the last couple of weeks, but let's get to the movie that is going to stir up a lot of conversation. And that is the number 1 movie this week, which, not surprisingly, was Joker Folie à Deux. Sequel, of course, to the 2019 movie with Joaquin Phoenix, playing the Joker, who won an Academy Award for playing the Joker. But, that was not a surprise. What was a surprise was the box office take, because on Friday, this opened to $20 million. And then as the weekend went on, it dropped to $11 million on Saturday. $8 million on Sunday, and now it ended up with making $40 million. The budget on this is $200 million, and worldwide it's up to $121.1 million. Now compare that to the original Joker movie that came out in 2019, which only cost, I believe, $75 million. I think it was. It was much cheaper than this movie was. I think it was. Let me see. It was close, $55 to $70 million. So, $55 to $70 million for the original Joker. The original Joker brought in $96 million on its opening weekend, and brought in a total of $335 million domestically, and worldwide grosses up to $1 billion. So, yeah, I don't think you really need to know why this is a bad opening for this movie, because, yeah, this is a pretty bad opening for this movie in general. I mean, yeah, it'll probably I mean, I was about to say maybe it'll cross $100 million domestically, but no, it's not going to do that. This thing's going to crash and burn over the next couple of weeks. I wouldn't be surprised if The Wild Robot somehow made it back up to the #1 spot. We could have that happen, because what's coming out next weekend? I think the only big new release for next weekend is Saturday night, and I'm really looking forward to it. I think it'll probably do decent business, but because it's actually doing pretty good business in limited release right now, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see. I mean, not too bad in limited release. $638,000 after only 2 weeks in limited release in like 21 theaters. So it'll be very curious to see what the wider release of this movie is going to be like, and also Piece by Piece. So who knows? Piece by Piece might actually be the surprise #1 hit of the weekend if the word of mouth is good on it. I mean, there's already commercials on it on television right now, and then the following week is all about Smile 2, which I think will be a big hit when that comes out. So yeah, there's a good possibility that this movie is going to crash and burn and probably be out of the top 10 almost immediately. Like right around the time Halloween comes around, we might not even be talking about this movie, except the fact that it'll probably have gotten a digital release. But I do want to bring up the story from Deadline Hollywood, because they do a good job of summing up what happened with this movie in general. And it's an article by Nancy Tartaglione called Joker Filet Adieu bows to... Actually, this is not the one I wanted to get to. Let me see if I can find the story I wanted to cover here. Yeah, that was the international box office one. The one I was looking for was this one's from Anthony D'Alessandro, who says, "No one's laughing now. Joker Filet Adieu falls down with $39 to $40 million opening. How the sequel went sideways." And it starts off by saying, "This isn't a box office marketplace problem. This is a creative development problem," declared one movie marketing vet this weekend over Warner Brothers' bold swing with the foul Joker Filet Adieu with a production cost of $190 million, which, first mistake #1.
Hyundai Tucson versus Toyota RAV4.
Shut up. Got a stupid ad that came up while I was trying to do this. So the first problem this movie had was, like, adding nearly $150 million to the budget of the movie. That was your first mistake right there, because the first movie was not really a small budgeted movie, but a much smaller budgeted film at $55 to $70 million, where this thing could have easily made its money back easily, which it did. But now, this is a movie that is just... Everything I've heard about this movie, which I haven't seen it yet, so I can't really say about the movie itself, but not just from the people who saw the movie, but from the people who were from within Warner Brothers, this just seemed like a disaster on so many different levels. So let me go ahead and go to the part I want to get to here. If anyone was betting on Joker Filet Adieu as being a winning tentpole in their fantasy box office league a year out, well, sorry, you just lost a ton of cash. The sequel, based off of a DC Comics character, is one of the lowest sequel openings in memory to a major franchise film based on a comic book. It's certainly lower than the start of Marvel Studios' bomb last fall, The Marvels, and that was $46.1 million. Most people saw Marvels at 3.3 million admissions in its opening weekend, one versus Joker's 2.5 million. Interestingly enough, it's not the lowest opening for a DC movie on record. Well, no shit, it's Jonah Hex is the top one with $5.3 million. So yeah, that's not going to happen anytime soon, but... Clearly, no one wanted to see Joker 2, especially when compared to the October record domestic start of the 2019 first film of $96.2 million. The only nice thing you could say about Joker Filet Adieu's opening here is that when it comes to movie musicals, its stateside start is bigger than the entire domestic gross of Cats at $27 million. That is not a good comparison at all. Like, Mean Girls, maybe you could probably put that argument in there, even though I hated the new Mean Girls movie, but like that's like a backhanded compliment there. And it says, if there was ever a sign about the nervousness with this movie ahead of opening, it was in stars Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga doing a very limited amount of press on the red carpet at the LA premiere. Not to mention they arrived at the after party at the Sunset Tower last Monday and got the hell out of there. No point in lingering if you know a hurricane is coming. The failure of Joker for Leodoo is about as clear as an azure sky of deepest summer. No fan of the original movie wanted to see a musical sequel, Mr. Phillips, period. And of course they bring up Todd Phillips. There isn't even enough lipstick to put on this Joker to indicate that it's any kind of win. The original fans of the film, which, let's face it, are fanboys and are men, because they bought tickets at 60%, kicked this clown to the street with a D cinema score and a half-star on post-track. And this is the kicker right here. Anyone feeling Megalopolis deja vu from last weekend, you're not imagining things. That movie received a D-plus cinema score. The difference here, of course, is that Warner spent more marketing than Zoetrope and Lionsgate to get this Joaquin Phoenix Lady Gaga sequel to some cultural global relevance. This thing did even worse than Megalopolis. Like, cinema score is where you really go to, depend on whether or not your movie's going to have life at the box office. And, yeah. If you're doing worse than Megalopolis, which bombed also this weekend, dropping 75% from last weekend, that's another one I still got to go ahead and check out. But, yeah, just not a good sign whatsoever. And to continue on here. No amount of clever marketing, not selling the pick as a musical, selling it as a Joker film could save this. We heard in recent weeks Warner Brothers pull back on their P&A spend, and that some exhibitors, not all, felt this. There's two schools of philosophy on this. It's normal for a studio to pull back on their marketing when they have a dud. They don't throw good money after that. However, some sources argue to me that Warner's could have pivoted the campaign more particularly on a film with this budget. I don't know. The audience exits say it all. The biggest promotional cardinal sin of them all, launching the sequel, which didn't have the goods at the Venice Film Festival. Why would any studio put a movie out there and let it sit on Rotten Tomatoes for a month with bad reviews? It's like what happened last summer with Disney and Elemental and Indiana Jones. Except those movies ended up being much better than probably this movie is. Sources tell me it was all part of Warner Brothers appeasing Phillips, which is why they allowed him to make this auteurish Steven Sondheim-like feature in the first place. Between the Hangover franchise and Joker, Warner Brothers has reaped $2.5 billion off of Phillips' fare at the box office. What do you do with a director who's done that much for you? Give him final cut. Yeah, big mistake right there. However, that brings up a point. There are a couple of pricey, auteur-driven projects in the works at Warner Brothers by Paul Thomas Anderson and Maggie Gyllenhaal. What happens if these filmmakers turn in non-commercial final cuts? It's not bad movies, it's bad budgets. And as I've written before, as auteur cinema comes at a cost, on the other side of the spectrum, do you know how much Brady Corbett's 3-hour indie with an intermission post The Brutalist cost? I hear $6 million. Some say Joker 2 cost $200 million before P&A. We believe it's $190 million net. By the way, this movie, that's not the movie's going over budget. That's what the movie was greenlit at, I understand. However, how the hell did the budget for a movie which doesn't have jackknife trailer truck stunts a la Dark Knight and arguably little CGI mushroom from its original cost of $70 million, and that had major co-financiers at the time in Village Roadshow and Braun, each taking 25% share, to $190 million. Joker 2 was shot with IMAX-certified cameras and featured IMAX 1570 celluloid film. If the budget doubled to $140 million, that's one thing, but clearly who was minding the production ledger here during the David Zaslav's cost-cutting cash flow palooza at Warner Bros. Discovery? Did the cost-cutting Zaslav spree wind up pink-slipping the proper accounting and business affairs execs who could have held this production cost at a lower level? Sources tell me that between Phillips, Gaga, and Phoenix, they reaped $50 million of the budget. Domain co-financed Joker 2, I hear, to the tune of 25%. So yeah, like, I think you could get kind of the idea of why this flopped on a number of different levels. The movie, like, it's funny because on our TV at work, we have YouTube on there, and the ads on there, you can always see, like, the trailers for the newest movies coming up. And every time I saw a new trailer for Joker 2, the more I got excited for it. But here's my thing. I got excited for it around August. I think that was the peak when I was excited for it. But every time I kept seeing a trailer for it, a new trailer for it, it just kept looking worse and worse and worse and worse. Like, that should be the red flag right there that something really, really bad is about to happen here, and this is the end result of that. And one would hope that one would hope that heads will start rolling at Warner Brothers for this, because this is all on David Zaslav too. For like, this is the guy I should have mentioned this before, but there was also a story out there that said they didn't even bother to test screen this movie to people because they thought they had an immediate hit on their hands. They won't test screen this, but they'll test screen stuff like Batgirl, Scoop Holiday Hunt, Coyote vs. Acme, and then decide not to release those movies in general. This doesn't get a test screening because we just know the money's going to come rolling in. I'm David Zaslav. I know exactly what I'm doing. just when you think it couldn't get any worse under this regime, it somehow gets even worse. Like, it's unbelievable how they completely botched this whole thing up. And quite personally, I can't wait to see how bad this movie is, because I've heard nothing but bad things about this movie all the way through. So, I'm hoping for the best. I'm hoping for some good news out of this, but I'm not putting my money on it. So that's the big story that's really the big story in terms of the box office, was the fact that Joker was a massive, massive flop. So yeah, that's the weekend box office for you, and quite a story there. So there's a couple of other stories from this particular week that I did want to cover, but I'll save that for next week. But let's go ahead and put the focus on the game tonight, the Cowboys and the Steelers. I'm hoping for the best. I'm hoping for a game that doesn't... Good Lord, I got stuff falling off behind me while I'm trying to record this, so that's why you hear those noises back there. Like, some shirts that I have hanging over here fell over, so I went ahead and picked those up. But like I said, I'm hoping for the best. I'm hoping the Steelers prove me wrong, and I don't think they're going to they're going to let the Cowboys completely dismantle them as much as they're dismantled right now, because we saw what happened last week with the Colts. I mean, the Colts just completely obliterated the Steelers in every way, shape, or form. And, see, I did it again. Maybe this is the universe's way of saying wrap it up, because I just literally hit my phone, and okay, I'm gonna wrap this whole thing up here. But like I said before, like last week, the Colts were completely banged up. They brought in Joe Flacco, and he just completely dismantled that football team altogether. Yeah, Micah Parsons ain't playing tonight. DeMarcus Lawrence ain't playing tonight. They don't have Brandon Cooks. Not that it's going to make much of a difference anyway, I don't think. But I'm hoping for the best. I'm hoping the Steelers will prove me wrong. I want them to prove me wrong, honestly. I want them to prove me wrong. But, like, these are the games you have to win. You have to win these games if you're going to have any chance of surviving the rest of the season. Because that second half of the season is so brutal for this football team. Like, they have to get as many wins as they can. If they keep taking losses like they took last week, where they just let the other team just completely run over them and then have those garbage time moments where you think they're going to come back and then ultimately they fail at the end. Like, this is going to end really badly if it goes that route. I'm hoping it's not, but we will see what happens. So, still have about 2.5 hours until we get to that point. So, I will see you guys later tonight for the kickoff. So, check you later.